after John Stolnis. Speaking of him, let's bring John Stolnis in right now here on Birds 365. He joins us. You can follow him on X at John Stolnis. Read some of his work at Bleeding Green Nation. John, how you doing on this Thursday morning? When I reached out to get you on, I did not expect this would be our main topic of conversation. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing good. Yeah, no, this was, I figured, we'll talk some Sean Mannion. We'll talk some Grizzard. We'll talk a little bit about what's moving forward. Super Bowl.
Poor Josh Grizzard gets moved to the back of the line. We can't talk about him just yet. We'll get some Josh Grizzard.
Tough scene, yeah.
Yeah. All right, John, I don't want to muddy the waters for you. Your initial reactions, obviously, a lot of shock. One of the most respected assistant coaches in NFL today, one of the best offensive line coaches in history. 13 years through 3 different head coaches. You never see that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not making it to year 14. Your thoughts on Jeff Stoutland walking away?
Let me just crack my knuckles, get him set for this because there's some thoughts here. So a couple of things. It's clear the Eagles wanted to change things offensively, and they had to. The passing game in the last 2 years has been substandard, subpar. Even winning the Super Bowl last year, it had flashes, but the offense was stale. It was ordinary. The players hated playing in it, right? I mean, so we all knew that something had to change. The schemes they were running were old and antiquated. And last year, the run game kind of fell apart. It got worse as the year went along. So we knew the change was coming to the offense here. So what the change that has occurred is you're bringing in this young, unproven guy in Sean Mannion, who might be good. We don't know, to take over the offense. A guy who's been a coach for 2 years, but was a backup quarterback for forever. And he is being given the keys to run this offense, which I think it kind of makes sense, right? If you bring in this young guy who's going to dramatically change the scheme, you're going to be under center more, you're going to do more pre-snap motion, you're going to do a lot of the stuff that Jeff Stoutland has never done before in his coaching career. I can understand that maybe there would be some kind of incompatibility there. Jeff Stoutland, who's been here forever, doesn't want to play second fiddle to an offensive coordinator, even though I will say, if you want to run the show, then apply to be an offensive coordinator. Like you could have made Jeff Stoutland the offensive coordinator if that's something he wanted to do or aspired to do. As an offensive line coach, you have to understand you're, underneath the offensive coordinator. Right. So, but this is not the first time the Eagles have changed offensive coordinators, as you just have said a minute ago. And Jeff Stoutland has managed to stay here through all of those changes. And so I really think that this whole thing goes back to last year when we've heard the reporting by now. You guys have been talking about it, that he had the run game duties stripped from him by Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni at some point during last season. And if you're Jeff Stoutland, imagine that the season before, you designed a run game offense that allowed your running back to run for over 2,000 yards. Had the most dominant run game in the league. And clearly they're dealing with offensive line injuries, a shorter offseason this year to get ready for the season, and all that factored into things. But you're being told by this offensive coordinator who's buddies with the coach that all of a sudden you can't design the run game anymore. Well, how are you going to take that, right? You're not going to react fondly, and you're not going to respond well to that. Jeff Stoutland should not have had the run game duties taken away from him last year, especially because the run game didn't look a whole lot different even after it was taken away. And I'm talking scheme as well as results on the field. And so it seems this was mishandled just in the same way that the Sean Desai, Matt Patricia thing was mishandled. So to me, it all comes down to Nick Sirianni and how he's handling things. Like when what is going on inside that building? Because guys, the Super Bowl is being played in a couple of days, right? I mean, like it was 1 year ago, almost exactly, that the Philadelphia Eagles were hoisting the Lombardi Trophy up into the air, and we were talking. Could we be looking at a mini dynasty here ourselves? A Super Bowl 2 years ago, a Super Bowl win this year. The defense is young and talented. All the offensive players are signed for forever. Like they could win another 1 or 2 of these things. And now 12 months later, you've got A.J. Brown looking like he's gone on his way out the door. None of the top offensive coordinators with experience that you wanted to come play here. And don't think that this Jeff Stoutland thing didn't get around the league as an indication of like how the Eagles are running things inside the building. You've got a defensive coordinator who wasn't sure if he wanted to come back this year, and thankfully, hands to heaven, he is. It's more than just about the scheme changing and about differences and about all this kind of stuff. There's stuff going on inside that building that is not good. And as someone who's not on the inside, I can't tell you what it is. But for Jeff Stoutland to leave, it may have been necessary with Sean Mannion coming on board schematically for him to go. But the Eagles are not as good a football team with Jeff Stoutland someplace else.
No doubt about it. Great response there from Stolnis on the first question here. John, how bad of a look is it for Nick? You know, your buddy BLG wrote, disrespect, tweet went viral already. How bad of a look is this on Nick Sirianni?
It's an awful look on Nick. I mean, his sole job is to try and keep the locker room together, and to kind of get everybody to kind of be rowing in the same direction, to massage different personalities and stuff like that. He mishandled 2023 in an awful way that almost got him fired 1 year after a Super Bowl. And it sure seems like he mishandled things here this season too, with how he removed the run game responsibilities from Jeff Stoutland. I mean, Stoutland, this is not a guy who's been overseeing a struggling running game for these last couple of years, and it was finally time to move on. I mean, Jeff Stoutland wasn't the problem with whatever was happening last year. It wasn't him. And so I think it's an awful look for a CEO head coach who has, in his time here in Philadelphia, failed at play calling, has seen his scheme deteriorate to the point where it's absolutely unplayable at this point. He has had an off and on relationship with his quarterback. His star wide receiver can't stand playing in his offense or on his team anymore. I'm out on Nick Sirianni. Like, I'm just going to tell you right now, I have zero confidence. I don't care what the record is. I think a lot of the success of this team has been because of other factors. And I can't point to the thing that Nick Sirianni does well that he brings to the table here. If someone else can please show it to me tangibly, what it is he brings, I am open to changing my mind, but I don't see it.
I think the branding, I think you're going to get your wish probably after next season, but one thing that's been clear to me this offseason is that they've gone overboard to brand these as Nick Sirianni decisions, from the hiring of Sean Mannion to the firing of Kevin Patul, not even firing because he's not been fired yet, but demoted for now. Yep. Everything's been branded. I get a Chip Kelly feel, John, of when Jeffrey Lurie basically moved Howie Roseman to the other side of the building and said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he gave that convoluted explanation of, well, I have to see what we have in Chip Kelly. I think we're at that stage in Jeffrey Lurie's world with Nick Sirianni. We have to see what we have with Nick Sirianni. And that probably means that he's going to be gone after the season. What I struggle with, to your point, they had the sixth best rushing offense in NFL history 1 year ago. 1 year ago. Why does everybody in Philadelphia think they have to change instead of, and who knows better than the Philadelphia Eagles that Landon Dickerson was banged up, that Cam Jurgens was banged up, that Lane Johnson missed 8 games. This could have gone right back to being probably not the sixth best of all time, but certainly a top 5 rushing offense in the NFL if you stayed status quo. So the complication of that is, well, you can't run the Shanahan scheme, the McVay scheme, if you're running the same running scheme. You have to marry that together. So why is everybody so focused on change versus taking advantage of the brilliance you already have in the building in this example of Jeff Stoutland?
I think because it's a good question. And I think the problem is that if you're running Stoutland's running game, can the passing game that goes with it, and I don't know the answer to this question, can the passing game that you're going to have that you want to try to marry to this offensive rushing attack, and which I guess is kind of in the Shane Steichen mold. I don't know why you couldn't find something similar to what was done in 21 and 22. And maybe that is what they have been running, something that was too similar to that, and it just grew stale. But we know that, this is a trendy league, right? And the McVay, the Shanahan tree, all those different those different kind of schemes, they're in vogue right now. And I think part of the other thing with the run game and the run coordination, and one of the reasons why it failed so much in 2025, and we've talked about it a little bit, but it's been kind of lost in this Jeff Stoutland conversation over the last 24 hours, is if Jalen Hurts is not going to run the football, I don't know that you can have the 6th best rushing attack in the NFL at this point. One of the things that made Saquon Barkley and that run game so good in 24, and why it was effective in 23 and in 22 and in 21 to a degree as well, was the threat of Jalen Hurts running the football. He refused to do it this year, whether it was in designed runs, whether it was in run pass options, whether it was even just scrambling to get first downs. He didn't want to run. He refused to run this year. And all the talk about, I'm going to do anything I need to do to win, that did not include running the football here in 2025. And so I don't know that we just haven't seen it. I don't know that the Stoutland run game is going to work without Jalen Hurts as the running quarterback to lead it. And if he's set and determined not to run the football, well, now you've got to think totally differently with your passing offense. Now you've got to start going under center more. You've got to start doing more pre-snap motion. You've got to start doing more crossing routes. You've got to make it look different than it was before. And maybe there's a way to marry the Stoutland stuff to the McVay stuff. It doesn't sound as if Sean Mannion and the Eagles believe that what Stoutland was doing was going to work with what Sean Mannion wanted to do. So I agree with you. All things being equal, I would say keep Stoutland, keep the running game, and figure the passing game out. But I'm not 100% sure that the running game works unless Jalen Hurts runs the football as well, from the style in which they were trying to run it.
How confident are you in their capability, one way or the other, or not confident to run that offense, to do that, without playing the power scheme that they just had?
Yeah, I'm not confident in anything right now with regards to the Eagles offense. I mean, I don't know enough about Sean Mannion to say, he hasn't even had a cup of coffee in the NFL right now. You know what I mean? Like he's had a sip of tea. That's been his experience coaching. And so there's no track record. That was Matt LaFleur's offense in Green Bay a season ago. Now, will he probably do something similar? I would imagine so. And we may have the next genius on our hands. I mean, that is 100% in a possibility here, and something for us to consider. This is something that we all said we wanted. Like we wanted change. Yeah, right. And I think change was necessary to some degree. And I think some significant change was necessary. They couldn't keep doing what they were doing. And I kind of likened it to a year and a half ago. My family and I, we moved from one part in our county to another place in the suburbs. And the place we were living before was, more, the houses were closer together. It was more of like a neighborhood where if you're walking your dog, you're going to pass 4 or 5 other people walking their dogs in 20 minutes. And you're saying hello to people. Is just more activity and traffic, but we had less space. We had less movement. There was, it was a little bit more constrictive, but you saw people more, and the house wasn't as, it was needed more work, but it was smaller. But anyway, we moved someplace else. We have more space. We're set back from the road. It's a bigger property. It's a bigger house. But there's positives and negatives that go along with that change, right? It's more house to keep track of. It's more expensive to take care of. We don't see our neighbors as much as we used to anymore. There's less of a feeling of a community there. So
sounds like my style of home there, John.
Yeah, I want that one, John. I want that one.
Well, but see, I mean, and yes, and I'm happy with the personal change, but there's drawbacks to it, right? There's things about it that are not as good as the situation we were in before. And so anytime you want change, there's unintended not consequences, but unintended effects of change. And losing Jeff Stoutland is perhaps, it's entirely possible. If he'd stayed on as the run game coordinator all last year, and they hadn't had any of that fallout, the Nick Sirianni, Patullo stuff, it's possible he still leaves when Sean Mannion comes in, if they're going to go with a whole different style of offense.
That's
here.
A good point. Yep.
Yeah, I think he would have left, to be honest. I think it has more to do with that from the standpoint of if we're sort of labeling the issues with the decision. But one thing that came up yesterday I thought was incredibly interesting. The Eagles are also going to pretty clearly move on from quarterbacks coach Scott Leffler after 1 season and give Jalen Hurts a 5th quarterback coach in 5 seasons. So 2 names came out yesterday. Connor Stanger, who is 30 years old and has been coaching for about as long as Sean Mannion. And then Greg Olson, who is 62 years old and has been employed by 30% of the teams, I looked this up, in the NFL. He was, when he started coaching, Stanger had 7 more years to go before he was born. What is going on with these searches? You got experience, and it's pretty clear the Eagles wanted Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel, and they end up with Sean Mannion. If you go, and you mentioned Josh Grizzard, he was only 35. So you have Sean Mannion, you have Josh Grizzard. Let's say you hire Connor Stanger, who's 30. You have 33, 35, 30. They have, outside of quality control, combined, they have 7 years of coaching at the NFL level. Now, to your point, you might have the most natural, this might be Roy Hobbs of coaching, one of these guys. They might be the natural. They might be just a savant. And I always say innovation is always by definition new, but everything new is not innovative. So you're playing that game. Same thing with experience. Experience doesn't guarantee competency. But boy, I got to tell you, John, for what this team went through last year, and all everybody harped on was how could you give this roster to a first-year play caller? And it worked the way it worked, which was not good. And now they're giving it right back to a first-year play caller with far less experience. That is an interesting decision. How do you unwrap that decision?
They were forced into it. I mean, there were probably, it seems like maybe 2 guys they really wanted, Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, and maybe there was another one in there. But they decided, once those guys went someplace else, they decided, well, do we get a retread that we know to be kind of mediocre? Like, a Matt Nagy? Do we go with a Matt Nagy? Who's going to be, I think he's in New York, right? He just went to go with the Giants. I mean, when Monken gets a head coaching job and you can't get him, and some of the other established guys get head coaching jobs and the other ones take head offensive coordinator jobs elsewhere, well, suddenly you're looking at kind of the retread, not so impressive guys. And so the Eagles decided, well, since we couldn't get one of the guys we really wanted on board that have, like we talked about, extensive play calling experience running an offense, they just decided, all right, well, then now let's shoot for upside. And so they brought in a bunch of guys, who they have been told, and by all accounts, people in the Packers organization around the NFL love Sean Mannion. They think he's an up and coming guy. They think he's going to have a great career as an up and coming coach.
Go back to McVay, O'Connell. They all speak glowingly of him.
And so now the Eagles decided, they realized we can't get what we wanted. We can't get what we were hoping to get. So we're going to shoot for upside. We're going to shoot for radical change. We're going to go this route now. But make no mistake, they were forced into this. This was not the plan at the start of the offseason. And the question that I think really gets raised now in light of the fact that they've had to move on to plan B, and maybe this is plan C or whatever letter plan this is, the big key this offseason and in 2026 is, will you get Jalen Hurts' buy-in? Like, will Sean Mannion and this new quarterbacks coach, whoever it is, will they be able to tell hard truths to Jalen Hurts? Will they be able to ignore some of the things that he says that he wants to do if they deem it not good for the team? Will he listen to them and take their advice? And how much rope does he give these young coaches before he decides to just do what he wants to do on the field? I mean, I don't know if that happened to some degree with Kevin Patullo this year, or how much Patullo was able to direct Jalen Hurts and really mold Jalen Hurts. If this was more the Jalen Hurts offense or the Patullo offense or the Sirianni offense or some combination. But one of the arguments to be made for bringing in an established guy was that it would be somebody that Jalen Hurts would have to listen to.
Right. I
And
mean, have
that's
they
not
earned? I mean,
happening
I
here.
think your question's fair. Have they earned the ear of Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, Jalen Hurts has accomplished more than these two put together.
Correct. And I think so then you wonder, like, well, how much say will Jalen Hurts have in what this offense looks like? Because we've heard all the reporting about his preferences and what he does want to do and what he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to run the football. We know that. So,
well, they better fix that, John. They got to fix that.
Well, I mean, listen, he's getting into his upper 20s now. I think he should be continuing to run, but you can't. It's like when Donovan McNabb was aging, right? And as his career went along, he didn't want to run anymore. So if you cannot force the quarterback to run, it's his choice to run. You can call the play, and if he changes it at the line of scrimmage to something else, there's nothing you can do about it. So if the quarterback has decided I'm not running, then you've got to get an offense together that he can run without him running the football. But now, if he's not going to run, then he needs to meet you halfway too and say, okay, then maybe I need to start doing things in the passing game that I haven't traditionally been comfortable with, but now I really need to start making sure that I'm working on those different kinds of things. And it's also going to be incumbent on Nick Sirianni to say, it's not all about avoiding turnovers. If that's the only goal we have, the offense is still going to look like garbage because you're so scared of making a mistake. And you can't let your quarterback play that way either.
All right, let me play devil's advocate here. All right, and this is not necessarily what I believe, but I got to ask it.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that we're all wrong? Nick Sirianni is actually right. I mean, we all have this desire for this new offense, right? Oh, it doesn't look good. We could be the Dallas Cowboys, throw for 4,900 yards, have an MVP quarterback, the prolific passing offense, and you don't even sniff the playoffs. I mean, is there a chance that Nick, while it might look ugly, actually figured out how to play offense in a way that allows them to win at the level they've won at? Now, I'm not going to dismiss the two bad years where it looked as bad as it did and it collapsed the way it did, but don't we have to at least ask that question? Is there a chance that Nick is right and the desires for a different offense are not well-founded?
I would say that there's a chance that that argument is correct as long as the quarterback runs the football. And I keep coming back to that because it was such an integral part of how the Eagles were able to do what Nick Sirianni wanted to do, right? Avoiding turnovers. Well, if you don't want your quarterback to make an at-risk throw on 2nd and long or 3rd and long, he can tuck it and run and get you a first down that way. How many times have we seen Hurts do that over the years? How many times did we see that in 2025? Can you count maybe on one hand the number of times Jalen Hurts on a 2nd and long or a 3rd and long broke a run that got him a first down? That wasn't overturned by a penalty, right? Every time it happened this year, we're like, whoa, where did that come from? Where has that been? And so you're right. I think Nick Sirianni's right in that avoiding turnovers is extremely important. But I also think Nick Sirianni understands that the league may have caught up to him. And also the skill, but we haven't talked about the players at all. A.J. Brown didn't play well this year. He's been such an important part of what they do. He didn't play well. He was not mentally into the season, really, from the start. And his performance showed it. He wasn't winning one-on-one battles. He was maybe physical in like 2 or 3 games this year where you can look back, you're like, man, A.J. Brown was a monster in that game. There were no other, he got out in the second half of the year. Do you remember him winning a single one-on-one ball deep down the field? Like that's part of that's part of this team's bread and butter. And A.J. Brown, it wasn't just in the playoff game. It was over the last 6-7 weeks of the season, wasn't winning a single one-on-one when he had one. And so you have that, and then you have the banged up offensive line. And, I think Sirianni is right in avoiding turnovers, but you have also got to be flexible. You've got to be malleable. You've got to be able to say, listen, this isn't working. This philosophy isn't working. We need to open it up. And there were no easy buttons for this offense outside of, hey, AJ, go win a one-on-one. And when that wasn't happening, they were stuck.
All those variables still won 11 games, John.
It's amazing. You used that term, and I was kind of thinking to myself, Xander, when you asked that question, I'm not picking on you, but you said, I'm not dismissing the 2 bad seasons. I love in Philadelphia, we've gotten to the point where double-digit wins are bad seasons. I mean, it's not bad to have expectations, I say all the time, but that's where we are, and that's part of the problem because of the expectations are so high. Yeah. And that's something you have to live with, and it's better to be have those expectations than to be a 5-win team and have no expectations and try to rebuild the whole thing. But, at bleedinggreennation.com, you wrote a piece about Jalen Hurts a little while ago, back in January, having a nuanced conversation. Hey, boy, I love it that you try to have the conversation. I try to have the conversation all the time. You've mentioned it a couple times here. I mean, if he's not going to run the football, I think you got to start looking at a different direction. I think we're at that point. And it's not, but I don't think I think you just have to convince him, look, this is part of what makes you unique. I never liked the Donovan McNabb comparisons simply because of this. Donovan stopped running. It was a different time. It was a different generation. Dual threat quarterbacks were looked down upon. I'm not saying those people don't exist because there's always a few knuckleheads, but now it's accepted. You're a dual threat. That's great. You're
right.
Josh Allen. It's great.
Donovan also had a different skill set, but
and Jalen's much better. But like I think the people trying to turn him into Brock Purdy are not going to be happy. And for the life of me, John, it mystifies me why it can't be just utilized, Jalen Hurts, the way he plays the game for as long as the shelf life is. Like, that's the goal to me. Yeah. Take advantage of this unique player who was won at such a high level. I don't want to turn him into a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. I don't.
But I guess if he's not going to run, what's the alternative?
I have to get him to run. The alternative to that, if I can't get him to run, if I can't get him to be the +1 in the running game again, then I got to start thinking about a succession plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And build around a quarterback that fits into the Shanahan type of system. But that's easier said than done. It's not easy to find quarterbacks. That? Do you think? Are you in the category that Jalen Hurts can play the Kyle Shanahan system and there's no problem with it? Or do you think there is a problem with that mindset?
I'm in the camp of I have no idea. And I think I've seen enough from Jalen Hurts over the years that he's worked really hard to improve. He is light years from where he was in 2021 as a quarterback.
100%.
And I believe
think people dismiss that, and they haven't seen the evolution. And I think it's been significant.
It has.
He made substantial strides, even from 2021 to 2022, that year they went to the Super Bowl, where he looked like a completely different quarterback. I believe I've seen him make the throws over the middle in tight windows when he's had to, when he's been forced to. I've seen him do it. I've seen him make all of the throws. He has a strong enough arm to make all the throws. It's not the strongest arm in the NFL. It might not even be top 15% strongest arm, but it is strong enough to make all the throws. He really struggles with getting the ball out on time, throwing to space. And like you said, that's Brock Purdy's game. That's what he does. And the Shanahan offense is kind of designed around doing that. But he's never been asked to do that before. He's been asked to wait for his guys to win one-on-ones and hit them. And to buy time in the pocket with his legs and scramble when he needs to. That's what he's been asked to do. He's never been asked to run a complicated timing offense before. I don't know if he can do it. It might be like trying to ask Randall Cunningham to run the John Gruden offense when Ray Rhodes took over in 95. It may not work. And then you're right. You may need to have a succession plan in place, whether that's Tanner McKee. And I don't think necessarily that would be the case because McKee's gonna be a free agent after this year. Maybe you see them draft somebody in the 4th or 5th round this year to kind of groom as a possibility for the future. I want to see if Jalen Hurts can do these things because I know he's won a Super Bowl. I know he's been to 2 Super Bowls and been the best player on the field in both of those games. I have seen him do what we have asked every other Eagles quarterback in franchise history to try and do and have failed to do. Right? He is what Randall Cunningham couldn't be. Donovan McNabb couldn't be. Michael Vick couldn't be. All these different guys, Nick Foles was, clearly an outlier, and you'll never see that again maybe in the NFL. But Jalen Hurts did those things. He didn't just get to a Super Bowl and then lose one. He got back to it 2 years later and then won the thing. And so I think Jalen Hurts has earned the right to have another year at least one more year, if not 2 more full years, to try and make a go of a new offensive system. And then after that, I think you're starting, I think in the meantime, you're starting to think about possibilities of, hey, what if this doesn't work out? What are we looking for in a quarterback to run this type of a system? Right. You might see the Eagles go in that direction after a certain amount of time, but man, I have been critical of Jalen Hurts. I don't like what he did this year. I think he left a lot of meat on the bone. The running just frankly befuddles me. But I also recognize the fact that he is the one we were promised all those different quarterbacks ago. And I still see a player who's got a lot left in the tank physically, and he's a guy who's improved from year to year. So I'm curious and kind of excited to see what he might be able to do in an offense where maybe guys are schemed up. Maybe there's more easy buttons where he has, where he has easier fixes when there's blitzes and everything else like that.
I think that's a great point. John, I want you to be as you always are. You're such a great interview right now. As honest as you possibly can. Is the championship window, is the Super Bowl window closing faster than anyone wants to admit?
I think yes, I'll say that it's closing faster than anybody wanted, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I think it's closed or even closing this year. Even if, because I do think we'll probably see a healthier Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson in 2026, and I think that'll make a big difference. I think a big question with Jeff Stoutland leaving is, does Lane Johnson come back? Or does he just decide to retire and hang him up? I mean, those guys were unbelievably close. And so I could very easily see Lane Johnson saying, you know what, new system, Stoutland's gone, everything else going on in this building, no AJ, and it sure seems like AJ is going to leave. I'm done. I'm good. That would be a major issue for this offense and would certainly hurt the Super Bowl window. But I think there's still a ton of talent on this team. I look at the defense and I see, even if Vic Fangio were to leave the year after next, there's so much young talent on the defense that's going to be here for a long time. The window stays open if you can play good defense. And I think we've seen teams, maybe they take a step back for a year, and maybe that means a 9-8 season for the Eagles this year, an 8-9 season, and then jump back right into the forefront. I mean, who thought the Seahawks were going to put together one of the greatest seasons in NFL history? And
look at those Super Bowl teams. Who had New England? Even it was one of the worst teams in football. Most people thought coming into the season.
Yeah,
and they're
so. I mean, I don't really believe in windows in the NFL, right? I think they're more in baseball and in other sports. The NFL, you can turn your roster around so fast, and the Eagles are so good with the cap, and they draft so well that I really don't think the window is going to close entirely. And you still have a good quarterback, a very good quarterback. As long as you have a very good quarterback, a GM who knows what he's doing, an owner who knows what he's doing, and a solid defense, I think the window stays open. But we're clearly not talking dynasty here. There clearly are issues. The floor is much lower now than I think we anticipated it being a year ago when this team was getting ready to dominate the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Real quick, John, if I could just follow up.
Yeah.
What move then would you make to restore confidence for the direction of the team then this year? What's the one move or the two moves or whatever you think?
Well, I think you got to show me that if you lose A.J. Brown, you still bring in a top wide receiver to play on this team, or you spend your first round pick on an elite wide receiver that can play right away. And then I think you probably need to talk in terms of players. I think you need to figure out, get an edge rusher in here that can make a big difference. And maybe that's re-signing Jalen Phillips. I'm uncomfortable with the price tag of a Max Crosby, bringing him in, but he certainly would make you feel much better about your defense. I just don't think they can afford him and then pay all the young guys that they need to pay. But I think, you re-sign Jalen Phillips and you bring in a number one wide receiver to replace A.J. Brown. I think you can get right back to being an elite team again. Are those moves possible? I don't know.
At John Stolnis, make sure you follow John on the X platform. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. His hitting season's coming up. The Philadelphia Phillies back. Make sure you follow his Phillies coverage as well as podcast there. We haven't talked about Vic. Vic, there was a little scare with Vic as well. We've all known. I mean, Vic was. After the Super Bowl, after they won the Super Bowl, he was thinking about retiring. The Eagles always knew it was going to be a short shelf life with Vic Fangio. They get a third year, it seems. They'll take that. I think he's the best defensive mind in the game. But when you know this might be his last go around, how does that change your thinking when you talk about building that defense? And like Jalen Phillips is a Vic Fangio guy. For Vic Fangio, he's played his best football. Maybe Vic's not here next year. How does that affect a big contract? He loves Nakobe Dean, but he might not be here next year. So how much impact do you think that has on Howie Roseman? Or do you think it's just, hey, we got to build the roster with the best players because we know there's going to be turnover quickly at defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I still think you still have to do everything you can to sign the young guys to long-term contracts, even if Vic Fangio's not here, because I think you're going to continue to play that style of defense. You're not going to radically change the defensive style. And this team, I know, has not done a good job of developing coaches to take on large roles. I mean, we saw that with Brian Johnson. We saw that with Kevin Patullo. We saw that they didn't develop Sean Desai, but the young guy they bring in. What Vic Fangio needs to start doing, and maybe he's already done it to some degree, is looking for somebody on this coaching staff. And maybe it's Clint Hurt, the defensive line coach, to come on and really start for there to be a succession plan in place. Because I think going outside and bringing like Jonathan Gannon back or Jim Schwartz back or something, that does nothing for me. But maybe I would trust Vic to mentor one of these young position coaches to eventually take over the reins. And you have access to Vic Fangio like every single day. So Vic can explain to you, like, here's what I'm looking at. Here's how we're going to change things up. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't do that in isolation. I think if you're asking Vic Fangio to groom his replacement, I would hope that you would, with all the talent that they're going to have on defense, that would be enough in order for you to continue to have a really good defense. I'm really hoping that Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, whoever else it is, Zach Bond, Jahad Campbell, all these guys, that they're not only a product of Vic Fangio. Maybe they are. And if that's the case, then we're all in a lot of trouble. But these seem to be really talented players.
No, they're good players.
Works for them.
Even Vic will tell you they're good players.
I agree. So,
all right, John, final question for you real quick. I'm going to go the proverbial gun to the head question. Is Nick Sirianni the head coach in week 1 of 2027? Or forget week 1 of 2027. 365 days from now on February 5th of 2027, is Nick Sirianni the head coach?
I think he is. And I'm not thrilled to say that, but I don't think we're going to I don't think that we're going to see a disaster of a season for the Eagles here. I think it could be a situation. I'll say I'm intrigued by the Sean Mannion hiring. I think it could work. I think there's so much talent on this team that it really should work. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with AJ Brown, so maybe that's a problem. If the offense looks the same, and like, let's say they start doing things differently, and then we start to see more of the hitch routes, and you start to see all the different stuff that drove us crazy this year, and the offense struggles, yes, Nick's gone. And if there's a lot of turmoil, Nick's gone. But I just, I don't know. I think there's been too much success for them to fire Nick. And I don't even really like Nick Sirianni as a head coach. I think if you're looking at the list of people who have been responsible for this run, Nick's not at the top, and he's probably like 4th, 5th, 6th in my opinion. But I don't think he's gone a year from now. I really don't.
We'll see. John Stolnis, thanks for joining us today, brother. It's always great catching up with you. We do appreciate your time. As always, go enjoy that nice property you got, John, with the extra space.
Don't make it sound like I'm living on a compound here, guys. That's not what I was saying.
I'm just interested where I can walk the dog with and don't have to say hi to 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
John, thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right, brother.
Thanks, guys.